6 months of endless texts, late-night calls, and promises to finally meet. Finally. But as she walked up to the door of his isolated house, she thought she heard something. A muffled sound, like soft footsteps following her. But when she turned, no one was there. The door creaked open with a groan. "Welcome," he said, his voice too smooth, too eager. The kind of voice that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand straight. For 6 months, Lila and Adam had exchanged endless texts, late-night phone calls, and online video chats. They clicked instantly. He was charming, funny, thoughtful, everything she'd been hoping for. They even shared their deepest fears and desires, things that no one else knew. But despite all the late-night conversations, Adam had never once visited her, and the excuses piled up. Work, family emergencies, and bad weather. It was always something, but Lila's patience was wearing thin. She'd invited him to her city dozens of times, but every time he had an excuse, telling her that it wasn't a good time. So this time, she decided to flip the script. Instead of waiting for him, she would go to him. She packed her bags, told her friends she was leaving for a weekend trip, and set off to his house in the secluded town he'd mentioned a few times. She didn't know much about it, just that it was in a remote area, quiet, peaceful, with a lot of trees. The perfect place to finally meet him in person, she thought. When she arrived at his house, it seemed ordinary enough. A rustic cottage, surrounded by trees and overgrown bushes. She knocked on the door with excitement, the anticipation of finally meeting him overwhelming. The door opened, and there he was, Adam. He was everything he said he was and more. Tall, with dark, hypnotic eyes and a smile that made her stomach flutter. She couldn't help but feel drawn to him. "You made it," he said, his voice soft and inviting. "I've been waiting for you." She smiled nervously, stepping inside. The air inside the house was stale, almost suffocating. Lila felt a twinge of unease, but she quickly brushed it off. She was finally going to meet the man she'd spent half a year talking to. It'll be fine, she told herself. But as the night wore on, something felt off. The house was dimly lit, with shadows creeping across the walls. There were no personal items in sight, no family photos, no books, nothing to indicate anyone actually lived here. Just an eerie stillness. They sat at the kitchen table talking, sipping wine. Adam's charm was still magnetic, but Lila began to notice oddities, like the way his eyes would flicker to the door whenever she stood up, or the strange noises that seemed to come from the walls. "Are you okay?" she asked, feeling a sudden surge of paranoia. He smiled, but it was different this time. It didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, just a little tired." She excused herself to use the bathroom. As she walked down the dimly lit hall, something caught her eye in the corner, a strange metallic scent, like rust in something else, faintly familiar. Curiosity gnawed at her, and she opened a door that she hadn't noticed earlier. It led to a cold, sterile room, much like a hospital. Her breath caught in her throat as she noticed the surgical tools laid out on the counter. This wasn't right. Then she heard the sound of footsteps. And Adam was standing in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes wide with something she hadn't seen before. Something predatory. "You weren't supposed to find this," he said softly, his tone calm but unnerving. Lila's heart raced as she backed away from him, her mind scrambling for an explanation. What is this?" Adam's smile twisted into something darker. "You know, I've been doing this for years. People like you are so trusting. You never see it coming." He took a step forward and she stumbled back. I need to leave," Lila gasped, her breath short. After Adam's chilling confession, Adam stepped closer, locking the door behind him. "No, you don't. Not after all this time." Her body froze as she finally realized the truth. The late night calls, the excuses, the isolation. It wasn't because of work or bad weather. It was all part of his plan. You were never meant to leave here," he whispered, the darkness in his eyes swallowing her whole. Lila's heart was pounding so loud she thought he could hear it. Her entire body screamed for her to run, but the door was locked and Adam was closing in. Her mind raced. Think. "Please don't do this," she begged, her voice cracking. She was terrified, but her survival instincts kicked in. She glanced around the sterile, cold room, looking for anything that could be used as a weapon. A heavy metal tray, a rusty old lamp, but nothing was within reach. Adam's slow, deliberate steps echoed in the silence as he closed the distance. She felt the weight of his presence in the room, each step like a countdown to her end. His smile was gone now, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. He was enjoying this. Her pulse raced. She backed away toward the surgical tools, desperate for an escape plan. She couldn't fight him in a direct confrontation. He was too strong, too prepared for this, but she could try to outsmart him. In a moment of clarity, Lila remembered the phone she left on the kitchen counter. Maybe, just maybe, I could reach someone before he notices. But Adam was already closer, and he knew what she was thinking. He reached out, but she ducked to the side just in time. Her legs shaky but moving on pure adrenaline. "Where do you think you're going?" he hissed, grabbing her arm. She screamed, trying to break free, but his grip was iron tight. Desperation fueled her next move. Lila's eyes darted around the room, landing on a set of thick wires near a cabinet. It looked like old electrical equipment, the wires tangled and ready to snap. She had no idea what they were for, but she didn't care. She snatched them up and swung them with all her might. The wires wrapped around Adam's neck, and for the briefest moment, his expression changed, from confidence to surprise. Lila's heart raced as she yanked the wires tighter, the pressure forcing him to stagger back. But it wasn't enough to bring him down. Adam wrenched free with a grunt, but the distraction gave Lila a crucial second. She turned, running toward the door. Her breath came in sharp gasps, and her mind screamed at her to keep moving. Lila slammed into the door, throwing her weight against it in a panic, but it didn't budge. Adam was quick to recover, coming up behind her. She could hear his footsteps, like a predator closing in. No, she thought, slamming her hands against the door, screaming for help that she knew wouldn't come in time. But then, she saw it. The old window, barely big enough for her to squeeze through, but it was her only chance. She ran toward it, her heart pounding, her hands shaking as she tried to pry it open. The metal squealed in protest, but she didn't stop. With one final heave, the window gave way just enough for her to crawl through. Lila's arms and legs scraped against the rough frame, but she forced herself through, her body nearly stuck halfway. She heard Adam behind her, his furious curses growing louder. Keep going! Keep going! Finally, she squeezed through and fell to the ground, the cold night air hitting her like a shock. She barely had time to catch her breath before she scrambled to her feet and ran toward the tree line. The sound of Adam's shouts echoing behind her. Every step felt like her last. Her legs burned and her breath was ragged, but she couldn't stop. She had to make it. But Adam wasn't giving up. His voice came closer, growing more frantic as he pushed through the house after her. He knew the land. He knew the woods. He was faster. Lila's mind raced as she dove into a small creek to mask her scent, slipping and sliding on the wet rocks. She held her breath, pressing herself flat against the cold, muddy ground, her heart thumping in her ears. She could feel Adam getting closer, his footsteps like thunder now. She had to be quiet. Every breath, every movement counted. And then the footsteps stopped. For a long, agonizing moment, Lila lay there, frozen in terror. She slowly turned her head, just enough to catch a glimpse of the edge of the woods. Adam was standing by the water, scanning the area. His eyes, dark and full of malice, searched for her, but the thick trees in the creek had given her the cover she needed. Her escape wasn't over, but it was a start. She slowly backed away, careful not to make a sound. Lila moved through the darkness, every step calculated, keeping her eyes on Adam's silhouette as he searched, growing further away. She crept out of the woods and into the open, her eyes darting for any sign of civilization. Minutes later, she saw headlights, a car just barely in the distance. Without thinking, Lila ran, her body screaming in pain with each step. But she didn't stop. She wouldn't stop. She reached the road and waved her arms frantically, hoping, praying that someone would see her. The car slowed, and then the door opened. "Are you all right? What happened?" Lila collapsed into the car, gasping for air. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Adam wasn't following her anymore. She was free. Lila was never able to shake the memory of that night. And though she went back to her life, she never stopped looking over her shoulder. She deleted every trace of Adam from her life, but sometimes when the wind howled through the trees, she swore she could hear the sound of his voice calling her name in the distance, and she wondered if she'd really escaped. The next morning, the house was quiet. Lila's phone, left on the counter, buzzed with messages from her friends. "Where are you? Are you okay?" But there was no reply. A few weeks later, another woman named Emily found Adam's profile. She had a different name, a different face, but the same story. And once again, the promise of a perfect love story was about to turn into a nightmare. If you enjoyed this spine-chilling story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more horror content like this. Share it with your friends. Let them feel the terror too. And if you've had your own creepy encounter or online dating horror story, feel free to share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.